So, Ms. Hutchinson, is it your understanding that Mr. Ornato told the president about weapons at the rally on the morning of January 6th?
That's what Mr. Ornato relayed to me.
His response was to say they can march to the Capitol from the ellipse.
Something to the effect of, take the effing mags away. They're not here to hurt me. Let them in. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol after the rally's over. The president said something to the effect of, I'm the effing president. Take me up to the Capitol now. To which Bobby responded, sir, we have to go back to the West Wing. The president reached up towards the front of the vehicle to grab at the steering wheel. Mr. Engel grabbed his arm, said, sir, you need to take your hand off the steering wheel. We're going back to the West Wing. We're not going to the Capitol. Mr. Trump then used his free hand to lunge towards Bobby Engel. And I remember Pat saying to him something to the effect of, the rioters have gotten to the Capitol, Mark. We need to go down and see the president now. And Mark looked up at him and said, he doesn't want to do anything, Pat.
No, Michael Steele, we'll see if the Justice Department finds evidence that Trump committed crimes, but the committee believes that these two Secret Service agents lied to it. And in an interview on this program, one member of the committee did not rule out, if those lies cannot be rectified, criminal referrals for lying to Congress. What do you make of sort of the pileup of corruption and criminality that has also been revealed by the Select Committee's work?
In one word, stunning. It has been absolutely stunning to watch this side narrative, if you will, unfold the way it has. Cassidy was not one of those folks, to your first point about, suddenly we have this hearing with her. I think a lot of people inside of MAGA world were banking that everyone would hold the line. Everyone's going to hold the line on behalf of Donald Trump because he is dear leader. But people have a conscience, and they see how good men and women can and have been corrupted by all of this, and so they speak out. We saw that with Mar-a-Lago, where someone inside the room said, "You know what? He's hiding more documents. You also look over here." So we have these moments, Nicole, where people step into that time, to their time, where they share what they know. And now we have revelations about the Secret Service, the corruption and the corrupting elements of that service to the country by the MAGA type mindset. And I think there's going to be more revealed on this narrative. And I think, again, it feeds the underlying story for the DOJ that completes so many elements of the puzzle that they're trying to put together with respect to criminality and accountability, as Mike noted earlier, that this is the moment where it all kind of comes together, and it has to fit. Why? Because it's true. It works. It's not one of those things that you sort of look at it and go, well, that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it all kind of makes sense now. It all seems like now I understand how we got from A to B to C to D. And I think that's going to be, again, a compelling part of this story that the Justice Department cannot turn its eyes away from. And it's been reported in the Atlantic and elsewhere. They seemingly are prepared to take that leap of faith that they got the goods and they're ready to put it in front of a grand jury.
Joyce Vance, what is your sense of where that process stands? Whether anyone like Cassidy Hutchinson has taken that step yet? Do we know if Cassidy Hutchinson has been before a grand jury, Mike?
Not sure.
What would that process be, Joyce? And what would explain why she hasn't, if she hasn't?
So, of course, we know, Nicole, because we've talked about it a lot, that DOJ operates, when it's operating correctly, behind this wall so that the public doesn't know what's going on. There are a lot of reasons for that. There are good reasons, and they're frustrating for us in this situation. But it's impossible to believe that at this point DOJ isn't reaching out to witnesses like Cassidy Hutchinson. Some of those folks are just witnesses. They're people who observed facts, who are able to offer testimony. But inevitably in a case like this, because what Mike is describing and the language that Liz Cheney is using is the language of conspiracy, the language of multiple participants in this obstruction of Congress. And some of the participants in that conspiracy will be more minor participants. And those are the folks you start with, approaching them to see if they have valuable testimony to offer in exchange for a cooperation deal. I thought it was fascinating that in this last hearing, the committee returned to this theme of what Trump knew and what Trump's intent was. And they really angled out a couple of folks in this regard, but most significantly, they talked about Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony about Mark Meadows and the fact that Meadows on one occasion confirmed to her that Trump knew that he had lost, but Meadows' words filtered to us through Hutchinson that Meadows said, "We are still trying to find a way to pull it off." And so this notion of potential co-conspirators out there who DOJ could be approaching for testimony is a very interesting one.
Joyce, what do you make of the dynamic that's been revealed that, unlike what is normal, Congress seems to have been more aggressive. They seem to have been on this first, and they have surfaced more evidence than we at this moment believe DOJ has developed as of yet?
It's tough to understand what was going on at DOJ that first year, because even when DOJ is conducting its investigation silently, there are things that filter out into the public. There are witnesses who are subpoenaed for documents or testimony. They challenge those subpoenas. That spills out into court, and we learn that investigation is underway. And that didn't happen during that first year that Merrick Garland was in office. All of the appearances are that DOJ, sort of the lumbering giant, sprung to life in late December or in January and began to investigate approximately on a timeline with the January 6th committee. And I honestly don't know what to make of that first year. Perhaps Merrick Garland so wanted to preserve the reality that we were a democratic nation, that we were a country that didn't resort to prosecuting former elected officials, that he hoped that it wouldn't come to that. But inevitably, the former president has in so many ways done everything but formally dare Merrick Garland to prosecute him. Trump is engaged in continued misconduct out of office. He's obstructed justice. He's held on to classified documents instead of turning them over and asked his attorneys to lie about that to the government. And that's before we even get to the fact that he fomented an insurrection and tried to interfere with the transfer of power. At some point, all of that criminality accumulates to a point where if you want to preserve the institutions, you've got to prosecute. You've got to have some form of accountability.
Mike, really quick last question. Will the committee view its work as incomplete if Donald Trump isn't charged criminally?
I think that they've set an incredibly high bar for themselves. They bit off this humongous issue of criminality, and the logical end of criminality is a conviction. And I think that they looked to criminality because they saw that everything else hadn't worked. All of these public disclosures about Trump's behavior had not moved the Republican Party. Impeaching Donald Trump had not led to a vote for removal or a vote to stop him from becoming president again. And I think that they were pulling for the emergency brake of the criminal justice system because they saw no other way of stopping him. And they thought that that was potentially one of the only silver, ways of them coming at this. So in that sense, they set the bar for themselves incredibly high.
And very, very publicly, as you report. Joyce Vance, Mike Schmidt, thank you so much for starting us off. Michael Steele sticks around when we come back.